For the 4 years that Donald Trump was in office, liberals were mortified by what the rest of the world must have thought of the United States. They were humiliated, having a combative, loudmouth billionaire president with not a politically correct bone in his body. Perhaps Joe Biden is their way of getting even. What a total humiliation it is watching Afghanistan for the past 10 days. For decades, the United States was the beacon of power in the world. Today, we are the feckless, fledgling public relations department at your company, being run by spineless bureaucrats more consumed by optics than actuality. Right now, we're watching some of the most obvious and painful story spinning we've seen in quite some time, all necessary to cover for the absolute failure, perhaps willful, of our government to see the very obvious and predictable outcome of this American withdrawal, the Taliban's immediate return to power. At this point, we have to question everything that comes from our government. How could you not? You'd be a fool to trust a single word that they say. When they say they see no indication of this, there's no indication of that, you'd be an idiot to believe that at this point. Yesterday, Biden made this next statement, hoping that you would forget that just a few weeks ago, he told Americans that the Afghan government would keep control, despite many warnings that the Taliban would retake the country. Here's Biden.
The evacuation of thousands of people from Kabul is going to be hard and painful, no matter when it started, when we began. It would have been true if we had started a month ago or a month from now. There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television.
What a spin. Totally ignoring the fact that he said we wouldn't even have to do this. Now this was going to happen all along. This was all part of our plan, and it was always going to be painful. What a ridiculous lie. Luckily, he's got the media to cover his butt. You could have done this when the country was still stable. If you knew it had to happen anyway, Mr. President, you could have tried that. Very basic, rudimentary foreign policy. And the best part is Biden bragged and sold America that this stuff right here was his specialty. He's a foreign policy guru. Can you imagine? If this is what he's good at, imagine his weaknesses. I mean, to think, it's very simple. If you knew this was going to happen, take the people out first. Seems like common sense, except they're lying, and that's why that lie doesn't work. His staff is horrendous as well, perhaps the worst of them. Today, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was asked a very great question. Why didn't the White House just tell Americans that this was going to be so ugly if they knew it would be?
Whether Kabul fell in August or September or December or next August, the fact is, whenever it fell, there were going to be American citizens in Kabul who needed to be evacuated.
Absolutely no apology, no about face, no admission of idiocy. That is the face of arrogant, liberal incompetence. The same people who tell you that everyone coming from Central America is a refugee. The people who tell you racism is systemic and deem it a national crisis. The ones who trust the World Health Organization to investigate China. These are the people that are in charge of our lives. You got to laugh. What else are you going to do, cry? They've got every degree that you can think of and not an ounce of common sense. No street smarts whatsoever. Whether to leave Afghanistan or not remains in question. Obviously, nation building does not work. We learned this again and again. There's great arguments for leaving a small faction in the country to keep it stable, and maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. But regardless, this did not have to be a full-blown disaster, and it wouldn't have been. But the people in charge are so blind to reality, they can't even see the cliff they're driving this country right off. Our former president set up this withdrawal, Donald Trump. Still blocked from Twitter despite the Taliban tweeting, he had to say this in a statement. Civilians and equipment go first, and then when everyone and everything is out, the military goes. So simple, and yet it wasn't done. Tragic. And while this statement, to be fair, is truly Monday morning quarterbacking, you'd have to think there's no way that Trump was going to let the Taliban make a fool of him. Trump would be in there listening to the worst case scenario, guys. You know he would be. He would not be listening to Jake Sullivan, I can tell you that. Today, President Biden spoke about COVID and then disappeared without taking a single question.
May God protect our troops. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Not a good look. That is an administration that is lost at sea. That's the man in charge of keeping international terror organizations in check for the foreseeable future. Him and all the lackeys beneath him that have no idea what they're doing. You feel safe? The Taliban shares a border with Pakistan, who has supported them while we wasted 2 decades and trillions of dollars propping up a real government in the country. Pakistan is an awful nation. Awful. And they are also a nuclear nation. Pakistan is a big problem. More on that later in the show. And now the Taliban is well armed as well and back in their country. According to Reuters, Taliban are believed to control more than 2,000 armored vehicles, including U.S. Humvees and up to 40 aircraft. They've got the most beautiful helicopters. It's unbelievable, the arsenal that they have now. And it's all your money. And if that doesn't infuriate you, I don't know what will. It is so disgusting. As Americans, we've gotten used to our leaders being incompetent and wasting trillions of dollars of our money. We watch it every day. We're so rich in this country, the streets should literally be paved in marble. We have so much money. And yet we somehow waste all of it and they need more. And now the incompetence of the idiots in Washington has evolved to the point where we're just giving billions of dollars in military supplies to our sworn enemies. That is the evolution of incompetence in Washington. Imagine how incompetent we'll be in another 100 years. It's going to be astonishing to see. The Taliban, which funded and protected al-Qaeda as they committed 9/11, is now running around Afghanistan, firing guns you paid for and flying around in choppers you paid for. Probably the most embarrassing thing this country has endured since Vietnam. Decked out in American military gear, the Taliban recreated the iconic Iwo Jima photo. Look at that. As if we couldn't appear any weaker, here's our useless Secretary of State on CBS.
Someone in our audience might listen to you, Mr. Secretary, and say, oh, so we have to ask the Taliban for permission for American citizens to leave. True or not true?
They are in control of Kabul. That is the reality. That's the reality that we have to deal with.
I bet you Major Garrett asked that question thinking he was going to defend it, and no, he just basically said, yeah, we're totally weak and we have no idea what we're doing, and the Taliban's in control. Yeah, we're just pathetic. Yeah, that's about right. How painfully weak we appear. What a specimen Tony Blinken and company are, right? Blind to the power of the nation that they control. They have no clue what we're capable of. So pathetic. More American apologists. You can see it in every move they make. In their minds, America is the problem. We're worse than the Taliban in their minds. The moves being made prove that. We're so sorry for being us. We know we're America. I know we suck. This is the Obama stuff all over again. Please just be nice to us. We'll understand if you don't, but just try not to blow us up as we're leaving. The world is going to eat our lunch, and it's already happening. And while many Americans breathed a sigh of relief when Biden won, right? The noise was gone. You can bet a vast majority would love a return to this brand of foreign policy.
I personally told the Taliban leader, if anyone ever double-crossed the United States of America, it would be the last thing they ever did.
Cojones. Those days are long gone. The new White House is legitimately begging the Taliban, just don't hurt us as we evacuate the country so you can take it over and destroy it.
Will the Taliban agree to an extension past August 31st? Have you discussed that with them?
We've discussed a lot with the Taliban. They've been cooperative in extending some of the perimeter. That remains to be seen whether we ask that question.
20 years of fighting, and in a matter of weeks, our neutered State Department walking around on eggshells, scared of the Taliban. What a nightmare. How embarrassing. Think about what Afghanistan is about to devolve into, a terror safe haven for radical Islamist psychopaths. ISIS was done for the past few years, beaten back to nothing until the Taliban took control of Afghanistan and emptied out the jails. Thousands of prisoners walking free. Just another complication, I guess, in the evacuation effort that is now underway.
They're maintaining constant vigilance. We're maintaining the constant vigilance to monitor and disrupt threats from any source, including the likely source being ISIS-K, the Afghan affiliate referred to as ISIS-K. But we're under no illusions about the threat.
He's like a local news anchor just reading the headlines. He has no idea what he's even talking about. They just put stuff up on the screen and all right, can I go to bed yet? What a time. There is an extreme risk during this evacuation, of course. Imagine A surface-to-air missile or a rocket taking down a C-17 as it takes off packed full of people. That's a very real threat right now. They've got the military capability to take down these jets that are taking off from Kabul, filled with Americans and everybody else they're pulling out. It's a scary time. But as Biden loves to say, America is back.
How can you say that America is back on the global stage after seeing the scenes in Afghanistan? And how do you think the world is looking at the United States right now?
Well, to answer her, our enemies are loving that America is back. China having plenty of fun with our disaster. Take a look at this.
One of U.S. President Joe Biden's famous pet phrases is, "America is back." This week, those words came true. The U.S. administration spent 20 years eliminating them.
What?
Now, at a cost of $2 trillion and 2,400 dead troops, the U.S. decided, or more precisely, was forced to withdraw.
Even though she's super annoying, and she's not wrong. That's China. As for our allies, they don't like it either. Disbelief and betrayal, Europe reacts to Biden's Afghanistan miscalculation. What a mess. So much for restoring stability, as Biden promised on the campaign trail. And even here at home, he has lost the room. Polls showing Biden approval ratings sliding to new lows, hovering at about 50% in 2 new polls. And let's just make sure we watch these for the next couple of weeks, because it takes some time for people to really digest all this news. They're going to drop further, guaranteed. Way down from those crazy numbers he saw after the election when he was up closer to 60%. A lot of people gave him the benefit of the doubt, and we have been reminded again, as we have been so many times with this guy, just how bad Joe Biden is at this job.